everyone. Welcome to the Consent Decree Advisory Committee Community Update for the third report. My name is Omar Montgomery, President of the Aurora branch of the NAACP, and we're happy to have everyone here today. I'm also happy to be here with our co-chairs, Pastor Reed Heddick and Jeanette Rodriguez, and as well as our additional committee members that works very hard on the committee. It's several of them, so I'm going to ask if we could put a link in the chat so that people can see who are the rest of the hardworking committee members that's working with the consent decree for our community in the city of Aurora. Today's agenda is going to be fairly simple. We're going to have Integra come up and give a community update on their third report. And then after that, it'll be followed by Chief Acevedo, Aurora Police Chief, Acevedo, and he will give remarks as well. During the discussion, there will be a link in the chat for you to be able to ask questions, and Pastor Reed Heddick and Jeanette Rodriguez will ask those questions. We are somewhat on a time schedule, so those questions that we cannot get to, as the previous meetings that we had, they will be posted and all questions will be answered. With that stated, also I want to talk about what we have coming up. Yes, this is a virtual format. Our last two meetings were actually in person. We're trying to toy around and figure out what is the best mechanism to give the reports. And the next few reports, you'll see small committee meetings that'll be held by different committee members that'll be held throughout the community to update the community on what's going on with the consent decree and other updates regarding Aurora PD. So look out for those community updates. They'll be open to anyone who want to attend. And hopefully, as we improve communication, they'll be on the city website so that people will know the location and time and be able to adjust their schedule accordingly. Pastor Reed, is there anything that I missed or anything we need to cover before we turn it over to Jeff with Integra? I think we've covered everything. So with that, we're going to start with our first guest, with Jeff from Integra to give us updates and the highlights of the third report. Thank you. As we work out a few technical difficulties of getting people unmuted, there are a few things I would like to share when we talk about those small community updates. We're trying to make sure that we reach as many community members as possible so that one, not just to share updates, but to hear what you want to see for public safety in the city of Aurora and be able to relay that back to Aurora PD as well as Integra. Once again, this is a 5-year process. So we're going to have many more meetings as we move forward. And I know that there were some people that's like, hey, I want to have this meeting in person. And trust me, we're going to have several more meetings. Some will be hybrid, some will be in person, some will probably end up being in small cafes, barbershops. We're going to go everywhere we can to work with the community and to hear your voice. We'll also be working with our city council members to give updates at the ward meetings, and as well as our community organizations and our faith-based organizations. So I hope, and if there's organizations that you feel we need to touch bases with, whether if it's HOAs or any other community groups, please reach out to us so that we can add them to the calendar and make sure that we're reaching out to those individuals or those communities. So I think we're ready to go, and I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to Jeff.
I think we're good now. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jeff, we can hear you. You can go ahead and move forward.
Great, thank you. I apologize for the technical difficulties, and thank you, Omar, and your co-chairs and the entire Community Advisory Council. Yesterday was our first year anniversary of being here in Aurora, and we're going to present tonight. I will go through the presentation, give a little background on the consent decree, talk a little bit about reporting period 3, and then of course we'll take questions and answers in the time frame that Omar has discussed. So if we can go to the next slide, that would be great. Hello? Okay. Just in terms of the consent decree, so that everybody is on the same page, the consent decree grew out of an investigation which was conducted by the Attorney General's office. They, on September 15th of 2021, found that APD, AFR, and the Civil Service Commission needed to reform in various areas. And we'll talk about those areas a little later. They include bias policing, use of force, investigative encounters, use of chemical sedatives, recruitment, hiring and promotion, and accountability and transparency. Following that investigation, there were negotiations between the Attorney General's office and the city, and that resulted in the consent decree, which was issued on November 16th, 2021. Next slide, please. This slide represents the role of the monitor, and in fact, we have multiple roles. The first role that we serve is to oversee the mandates of the decree, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. We also provide technical assistance. We engage with the community, and of course, this meeting is one of those engagements. And then, of course, we report to the parties, the community, and the court in our written reports, which during the first year of the consent decree have been every quarter. And in the next 4 years of the consent decree will be semi-annually, that is every 6 months. Next slide, please. So the consent decree, as we said, came about as a result of those negotiations and the agreement of the city and the Attorney General. We have our different roles, but in our oversight role, we had to come up with a common language for oversight, and we worked with the parties to do that. We did what we called a disaggregation and came up collaboratively with the parties with the methodologies to aid in the determination of compliance. And for every mandate of the consent decree, and there are 72 of those, for every mandate of the consent decree, we have a written protocol that we go through. And again, we report out to the parties, and that report contains what we call a report card in which each of those mandates is graded. Next slide, please. These again are the areas of the consent decree. And again, we are providing both oversight and technical assistance in the decree. Next slide, please. How is compliance measured with the consent decree? Again, for each of those 72 mandates, there is a written protocol that everybody has signed on to and agreed to. It calls out exactly what is expected of the city agency to deal with that particular mandate, lists the data that is required to comply with that mandate, and everybody is on the same page and understands what is required of them to meet what is called substantial compliance, with that particular mandate. Next slide, please. As Omar said, this is a 5-year process, and this slide is meant to show that. It is really a marathon, and the little man running on the highway is at the 1-year mark. And it should be apparent to everybody that the bulk of this consent decree lies ahead of us. The first 2 years of the consent decree are basically dedicated to the development of new policies, new training, and the delivery of that training. Then we go on to the monitoring of the operational integrity of those policies. That is, are the policies that have been written being followed on the street? So we will be looking at that. We're looking at that in certain areas now relative to existing policies. And we have reported on some of that in our periodic reports. During the entire 5 years, there are ongoing monitoring activities. We come out once a month. This is our 13th trip out. We stay for 3 or 4 days. We meet with stakeholders, but during the remainder of the month, we are actively working, again, meeting with stakeholders virtually, reviewing body-worn camera video, reviewing investigation, receiving input from the public, and of course, what is going on during this entire period is a culture change, a change to a culture of continuous improvement in the police department. Next slide, please. This is the legend for the report card we use. As you can see, there are color codes and also a code with regard to the degree of each, what is called a Harvey ball being filled. Green is right track, yellow is cautionary track, red is wrong track, and each one of those balls can be filled from 0% to 75 to 99%. And of course, the green one can be filled entirely, and that means that substantial compliance has been reached in that particular area. Next slide, please. This is the distribution for this reporting period of the grades in each of the areas, those areas that we went over before. As you can see, there are some which are in green. There are a total of, I believe, 13 that are in substantial compliance, and we'll talk about those in a minute. There were a lot more yellow in this period that is on a cautionary track, and we'll also talk about those. And thankfully, nothing is on the wrong track as of now. Next slide, please. So we also had focus issues in our report. And by the way, our report can be found on our website, auroramonitor.org, along with the copy of the consent decree and all other relevant documents in the decree are found on our website. But we reported on a number of focus issues. We talked about the new interim chief. We talked about efforts at improving police community relations. We talked about the police auditor's body-worn camera audit. We talked about designing civilian oversight after the end of the monitorship. We talked about a gun violence reduction grant. We talked about our hiring report, which was included as an appendix. And we talked about the internal investigations and disciplinary system. I commend anybody who is interested in these topics to, again, go to the website, look at the report, and read those focus issues. They are an easy read. Next slide, please. The highlights from RP3, reporting period 3. Again, 11 mandates were found to be in substantial compliance. 2 were regarding how AFR develops and updates their policies, including the timely submission of a new policy to us. 9 centered on AFR's continued removal of ketamine from its protocols and it not being used in the field. And by the way, every month I review, along with members of the team, each of the times that a chemical sedative is administered by AFR when it is captured on body-worn camera video that police officers on the scene are wearing. There were also 3 mandates from prior periods which remained in compliance. That was the hiring of the expert for RHP, the joint APD-AFR policy for cooperation, and the contacts policy form. Next slide, please. There were also 29 mandates on the cautionary track, and this was either because of missed deadlines, which were included in the consent decree as a date by which that particular mandate should have been done, or uncertainty as to whether or not the expectations of the monitor were met or will be met. 20 missed deadlines, 10 in contacts, 19 in use of force, and then there were the 9 due to the uncertainty of the ability to meet expectations in a reasonable time frame. And that had to do with analyzing and transmitting contact data to the state. I'm happy to report that that data should be transmitted by the end of February. There have been some glitches with the state, and the state has extended the time to submit to the end of May. With the Force Review Board, there needed to be more focus on continuous improvement and more critical examination of issues. That has been getting better recently, much better, really. And then there is uncertainty with regard to the Civil Service Commission rewriting rules for hiring pursuant to the mandates that affect hiring. Next slide, please. So I just want to end with this, and then we'll go on to questions. And I want to let everyone know that, again, this is the marathon, a marathon. And I have actually seen how this marathon can end. I monitored the Los Angeles Police Department for 9 years. And at the end of that 9-year process, and hopefully we here will be able to do it in significantly less time. I'm hoping for the 5-year anticipated time frame. But in LA, we saw the quality of contacts and arrests go way up, uses of force go way down, crime go way down, officer safety went way up, and public trust and confidence in surveys that were administered at the beginning of the consent decree had the LAPD as either good or excellent at 25%. And when we left 9 years later, that same number was at 83%. So to me, there is no doubt that working together, we can get to the finish line and achieve everything that everyone on this call wants to see happen. And that is to make sure that we have a department that is working for the residents and visitors to Aurora, but is also a model not only in Colorado, but for the rest of the country. I'm happy to take questions now.
Thank you, Jeff. And questions, Pastor Reed Heddick, Jeanette Rodriguez, do you mind sharing the questions that we have so far?
I can do that. Thank you, Omar, and thank you, Jeff. A couple of questions have come into the chat. First one, Paul asks, it says, in reference to missed deadlines, the third report's executive summary says that the monitor and the city have gotten a better understanding of the capability or lack thereof for AP to simultaneously deal with the substantial number of mandates calling for significant changes. So the question is, what are the factors that created that lack of capability?
So I think the consent decree, as we've talked about, is a long process, but it's also an involved process. And I think that there was a degree of optimism that I think was misplaced, quite frankly, relative to the dates that were agreed upon uh, for uh, for the city to achieve policy rewrites. The governance was not in place, and we had to work hard to get that governance in place. We got that governance in place. New policies have been written, and I expect that they will continue to be written. And by the next reporting period, we will have caught up so that those missed deadlines will no longer be on a cautionary track, but rather in substantial compliance.
Okay, there is another question in the chat, but those of you that are in the meeting, if you have questions, get them in the chat, and we have a few more minutes to ask questions of Jeff. Jeff, the second question, also from Paul, says, beyond the reports and the 2 community meetings, what community outreach efforts have the monitor and the team done to overcome community concerns, such as the city paying Integra and thus reducing independence as reported in the Sentinel?
So, first of all, there are clauses in our contract that guarantee our independence. So, the public should rest assured that that is the case. In every consent decree in the country, it is the city that ultimately pays for the monitor. In terms of additional outreach, we have worked hard with the Community Advisory Council, and I know you, Reed, and Omar and the committee, the council will be talking more about the plans for additional outreach. I have met with members of the community. I had lunch today with some members of the community who are part of the, I would call those who are most concerned and very vocal about what's going on. It was a good meeting. I heard concerns that they have. Lastly, if there are additional concerns, or if there is anything that you think as a community member that we should be looking at, whether it be misconduct or anything else, please contact us through our website. That's auroramonitor.org. There is a contact form there, and we are happy to reach out, and we have done that on a number of occasions with those people who have either contacted us or have contacted other entities, including the Community Advisory Council, and spoken with those people and addressed their concerns.
Thanks, Jeff, and Paul and others. Omar will be reminding you of a few more community outreach efforts that will be coming up here soon toward the end of the meeting, so you can be looking forward to that. Brian is asking, do you feel APD has been fully in compliance with turning data over to the monitor and the public? Can you address any transparency concerns that you may have?
So I think the short answer is they are trying. Their systems are not in great shape. Their ability to derive data from that which they collect is not in great shape. One example of that is the collection of data on contacts. Unfortunately, neither the department nor us until recently have been able to look at the data to extrapolate one way or another from that data, which of course is the reason for collection. We have started looking at that data now that we have access to it. There is other data which has been difficult to obtain, but I don't think it is because the city doesn't want to comply. I think they have been working diligently to get us the data that we need. but it is a systems issue that obviously needs to be addressed and is being addressed by the city. There are a number of new systems which are coming online in the next year, which hopefully will help with the problem.
And so, Jeff, the second part of that question, just make sure that you have an opportunity to speak to it. Can you address any transparency concerns that you have?
Not transparency concerns with us as the monitor. There are transparency concerns that we have addressed with the city relative to the public. And we received a plan in the last week relative to data being posted on APD's website that will provide more transparency to the public relative to the different areas that, of course, one would be concerned with, from contacts to arrests, to uses of force, to discipline, and the like. So we expect that portal, it will be called, will be going up certainly within the next few months. And we look forward to that and the increased transparency that will provide to the public.
Okay, I am not seeing more questions coming in right now. Omar, do you have any questions for Jeff?
Jeff, as you've gone through your year of monitoring, of being the monitor, what would you say are the 3 things that we need to look forward to in regards to change in Aurora PD coming up in 2023 that will enhance and improve trust from the community in their public safety system?
So certainly one is the arrival of Chief Acevedo and his getting out in the community in a fashion which I think will promote not only transparency and answer community questions, but will also address the issues that the community has and that the consent decree has laid out. Chief Acevedo has embraced the consent decree, is pushing it down within the department. So I think that is certainly one thing. The next thing is the continuation of the writing of policies. And those policies then lead to enhanced training. I attended a training today on what's called ICAT, which is really training from the Police Executive Research Foundation on the utilization of force, or the non-utilization of force in circumstances that permit that. And it was an extremely well done training. And I know that the chief has aspirations of having members of the public attend training sessions so that they can get a better view into the process. And I wholeheartedly support that. The last is something I mentioned before, and that is that transparency portal, where I think the public will be able to see what is going on and how things compare to periods past in terms of all those various items that I listed. So I think those are 3 important changes. We are very, very interested in what the public is feeling on the street. And again, to the extent that there are issues, I think the members of the CAC were posted in the chat box. You can reach out to them. You can reach out to me through the website. Our virtual door is always open, and we are always willing to discuss issues, especially issues of perceived misconduct on the street. So please don't hesitate to do that. Sometimes because of this marathon, the changes that are made are incremental and can't be felt right away. Hopefully some of you have felt the changes, but I think there is much more that can be done and will be done, Omar.
Okay. And one question that has come up in other areas in regards to training on how our bias-related training, our diversity training, equity training. There was some rumors in the community that there was some resistance within Aurora PD to receive and accept those trainings. In your experience over the past year, what have you observed, and how do you feel about the trainings in those areas so far?
So 2 new policies were published in the last week or so. One on constitutional policing, and that's a policy that Aurora PD never had specifically. They had things scattered around, but never specifically a constitutional policing policy. And the other is biased policing. And those policies, for anybody who is interested, can be found on the Aurora PD website. They are published, all policies are published there. With regard to the biased training, there was just training which was done, finished with 98% of the force being trained on both of those new policies. I am unaware of any resistance to that training. I think the comments that I have heard is that the training was good, and we're certainly happy to share that with the members of the public, and we'll try to post the video on our website. We'll work with the department to do that. In addition, there is training coming up on March 23rd, specifically on bias, implicit bias, fair and impartial policing may be the topic area, and members of the public have been invited to that. I think there are 2 spots which have been designated for that, and we will be in for that training as well, and we look forward to it. And again, I haven't heard of any resistance, and I'm certainly interested in hearing about resistance if that is the case.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for making time, and thank you for your update. And if I heard correctly, and I'm sure the link will be in the post, if you observe anything in the community that you think need to be investigated, or you would like for Integra to review, whether if it's good behavior or bad behavior or misconduct or abuse of power, please reach out to Integra so that they can investigate and review and see what's going on. With that, thank you, Jeff. And we're going to go to our next presenter, which is Chief Acevedo, who is the Chief of the Aurora Police Department. Thank you for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Chief, you seem to be muted yet.
How's that?
There we go.
I just want to say thank you all for being part of this group and for your work and your care and your interest in making the relationship between our police department and our community stronger than ever. And most importantly, building a community partnership and a police department that is committed to the safety, security, and the well-being of the community we serve, and also to doing our jobs in a manner consistent with the requirements of the Constitution in this country that's a country of national laws. I've been here now since December 5th. Been spending a lot of time with committee members, with the officers, or with the monitor, with a lot of the groups that we have working with the community, with the department in the city. And I can just tell you that it has been whirlwind, but I'm enjoying every minute of it. We are, like Jeff said, very much committed to the consent decree. I really believe the consent decree is a great opportunity for this department to become the model agency for the nation. Kind of consent decree should be like activists. You don't run from them, you embrace them, and you try to utilize the tools and the resources and the roadmap that it provides to build a great organization. Having said that, I just want to let you know that I believe that the biggest challenge for this department, which is a challenge for our nation, it's leadership. Sometimes folks are a product of their own environment. They don't look outward, and they don't know what they don't know. And I'm very proud to be here, bringing a perspective that's informed by 35 years plus of policing in 4 different states and 3 municipal police departments and a state police department with California Patrol. Now my stint here in Aurora. We received from Michelle Crawford, who is now the auditor for the city. So I don't know if that's been announced, but she's now been selected as our auditor, and I've had the opportunity to work with her on a couple of audits. The most recent one was our crime lab and our body-worn camera audit. We are accepting all of her recommendations. I can tell you that I just approved, actually it's going to come out, I think, tomorrow, but I approved a new body-worn camera policy that requires our officers to activate their body-worn camera. That mine's charging, and I'm inside my office, so it's not on me, but it requires us to activate it, not when we arrive at a location, but when we're actually responding to the location. It's going to limit and provide additional guidance on when you can mute. Let me just say to the group that I've spent quite a few nights in the middle of the night working patrol in the city, and one of the things that I noticed was out working patrol that our officers were muting, not because they're conspiring to do something, but they were muting when they were actually having some really important discussions at a scene on how they're going to approach a problem, how they're going to enter a home. I witnessed it. I was one of the officers that went in, and what they were actually muting was what the community needed to hear if something went wrong and we ended up using force, or God forbid, deadly force. Because if we were muting those conversations and something goes sideways, a skeptical community is going to think that, well, my God, they're probably, conspiring to go violate somebody's rights or conspiring to kill that guy. When in fact, what was happening was some really thoughtful, deliberative planning on how to achieve a lawful objective, which was to remove, take into custody someone that committed second-degree domestic violence and assault, tried to strangle the woman. I was the first one on scene where you could see the discoloration of her neck, bit her arm, and so that policy has changed. Every policy that we change, we're going to put out right away to the community. One of the problems I saw early on is that we had so many balls in the air. We were missing so many deadlines. And part of it was that we weren't well organized. So we actually did an organizational pause, and we've organized all of our projects, all of our policies with due dates, with proper follow-up. Thanks to the city and the deputy city manager, Jason Batchelor, we're actually going to get some additional help in actually developing these policies, but more importantly, the training that goes with it. I've met with all lieutenants. I've obviously met with the command staff. We just had a training session and an assessment that we did of the entire workforce when I got here. And to be quite honest with you all, our command staff, our leadership got beat up pretty consistently by both our sworn personnel and our professional support staff. And now it's incumbent upon us to take that feedback and start creating a better leadership, a leadership team. We will no longer wait when there's a critical incident in terms of a police officer is charged with the crime, or like you saw on the news with former Officer Haroon. In the past, what this department has done is, rather than start an immediate administrative internal affairs investigation, they would wait. They would, quite honestly, they would wait for 6 months, a year, to see what happened with the criminal. That is not a good practice. That's not a good process, because as you all know, district attorneys are elected officials, and elected officials play politics. And I can't control what the district attorney is going to do, but I can control what we do. And that means that we're going to investigate from the word go. We're going to move at an appropriate pace. We're going to make our own assessment, and we're going to take appropriate corrective action from, if it is warranted. And in the case involving the former Officer Haroon, you might have seen on the news that he resigned. And coincidentally, he resigned the night before he was going to be interrogated by Internal Affairs. Had we not done it, had we done it the way this department's always done business, that officer would still be on the books. Even though he was not being paid, he'd still be on the books. Because the burden of proof administratively is a preponderance of evidence, which is 50% plus one, and it's not like it is with the criminal case, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. So quite honestly, I don't really care what happens with the criminal in terms of what the DA does or a jury does. If I can prove misconduct that's worthy of discipline with the preponderance of the evidence, we are going to take that action. That's a new process that I don't think they have followed. Internal Affairs will now be going to all of our officer-involved shooting scenes, and they will go start their administrative right away. Again, that's another best practice, and that's something new. But I don't want to just blab on forever. What I would like to do is just answer your questions, what questions you might have, concerns or suggestions, which I think is probably the most important piece of this discussion.
Thanks, Chief. We do have a couple of questions that have come in. First one actually came in online during the week, and it's sort of a, well, I'll let you respond to this. It says, what is the percentage of police patrolling versus police responding to calls?
That's a great question. I don't have that off the top of my head right now. I can tell you that here's the issue for us. We have about 750 authorized positions, but we have less than 700 filled right now. Less than 700 people in the seats in house. So we have on patrol about 250 that are about 250 that are not out on patrol. But here's the issue that we have to think about. If we don't have people investigating the crimes after patrol goes to a scene, then we're not going to be able to disrupt and hold people accountable. So we are actually doing, as we speak, and I will actually put something out probably by the end of the first quarter of this year, April 1, a reorganization and a plan on how we're going to move forward. Since we're so short, what Chief Dan Oates did with support, and actually the union members from the FOP voted to move to 12 and 12.5-hour shifts, that gives us better coverage on patrol. And that, I think that speaks to willingness of the officers. I mean, they don't really want to work 12-hour shifts, but they actually voted to do it. I think it speaks to their commitment to try to do more with less, and their commitment to trying to keep the community safe. One of the things that you're going to see, because whoever asked that question, you're probably worried about response times, is we're going to start what's called the hot shot protocol, that when a violent crime in progress, or a crime in progress that is high risk to the community, like someone hiding in their closet when somebody's breaking in to their home, those break-ins can turn very quickly into aggravated assaults, aggravated sexual assaults, or to murder. we will not just authorize officers to go license sirens. They will be required by policy to respond with lights and signs. And what you're going to see that's going to reduce response times. It's going to increase our visibility across the city, and it will, believe it or not, disrupt the criminal element, because while we're going to locate 7-Eleven on, whatever street, lights and sirens, I can tell you when we do that, unbeknownst to us, another location near there is being robbed. I have seen time and again where that robbery is never completed because they hear the sirens going to another location. They think they're coming there. So it will also disrupt crime, and that will help us with our response time. So we'll see more coverage with the 12.5-hour shifts starting March 7th, which is the change when we go into that new operational period. In that, you should be able to see a greater coverage out on the streets. Keep in mind that you're not just seeing patrol, but we also have unmarked officers and unmarked units. Just because you're not seeing a black and white doesn't mean that there isn't a police presence in your neighborhood, because we do have specialized units that are actually out doing police work in undercover cool cars. Yeah, Reed, your Pastor, you're muted as well.
There we go. I was trying to reduce background noise here, and maybe I did it right by reducing my noise. A couple questions came in here in the chat. First of all, Paul asks, or says, you've discussed relationship policing as a key to community outreach for APD. At a high level, what is it and how are you doing?
Well, we've always talked about community policing and law enforcement, but too many chiefs will say, we don't have enough people to do community policing. I mean, we're going from call to call to call. So I've kind of evolved from that mindset of community policing to relational policing, which is first and foremost an understanding that every person we come in contact with, whether it's on the phone when we pick up the phone, or at the front desk, or the 911 location of a call, is the beginning of a relationship. It may be our only time, our only opportunity to have an impact or to make leave somebody with an impression. So I talk about relational policing, which is about understanding that we're radically dependent on each other, the police and the community and the police, and neighbors and friends. I mean, we're human beings, we're very dependent on each other. So we need to conduct ourselves in a manner that will turn every contact into a friend and a supporter of the police department, because and that will build trust and not mistrust. And so the acronym I came up with when I started talking about relational policing is TREAT, TREEAT, which is we're going to be transparent as much as the law will allow us to. We're going to treat people with respect. We're going to treat people the way they want to be treated, not the way we want to be treated, because it's not one size fits all. And if we're truly going to be culturally competent, we need to understand the communities that we're serving, especially in the most diverse city in Colorado, so we can know about their customs, their beliefs, what's important to them, so we can, with that cultural competence, treat people the way they want to be treated to the best of our ability. So that's the respect piece. Then we're going to engage, and you can't build relationships. By the way, I don't like this form. I like in person the best. I wish that Teams would go away and Zoom, because I like to touch people, feel people. So we're going to engage folks. You can't build relationships unless you're engaging people. And when you're transparent and you're respectful, you're engaging, you're building emotional capital. Because the one thing that I know is that no matter what we do, no matter how well this consent decree goes, perfection is not going to be achieved. It's just the one constant about humanity is the imperfection. So we better have built that emotional capital that through that transparency and respectful interaction, because we're going to have to draw from that bank when something goes horrific. Then so it's transparency, respect, engage, build emotional capital. We have to hold each other accountable. We have to call balls and strikes, whether it's with our workforce or the community. And then when we do these things, I think you end up building trust. And with trust, we end up really much more effective police department. We build safer communities, more vibrant communities, and quite honestly, it increases the police officers' safety and the community safety. I think that's a win all the way around. So it's relational policing, and the acronym is TREAT.
Okay, here's mostly a comment from Bill. He says, last night I met with District Commanders Barnes and Jackson in reference to Northwest Aurora community monthly meetings to be established. with give and take information on how to better serve this community. And you said we did some brainstorming ideas for future crime prevention and policing.
Are you talking about the our new commanders forums that we're going to have every month that we're going to host, where the public's going to be invited to meet with us?
I think that's what he was referring to.
Yeah, we just started. I just started that. This month is the first time. Because of the weather yesterday, we had tried to cancel. I haven't talked to I haven't heard if anybody showed up, but we actually canceled. We didn't want people to get hurt coming to our meeting. But we are going to have monthly meetings that we're going to call commanders forums, where the commander will be there, the police chief or his or her designee will be there. We will be talking about the issues in the area, in the command. It'll be an opportunity for the community to actually interact with our command staff in that district, our PAR officers, some of the specialized units will be there at times. Homicide unit may come at times. Different units will come to give us the opportunity to interact, right? To engage one another. Where we can talk and hear from the community what their priorities are, what their concerns are. We will also live feed those on like Facebook Live. So those members of the community that don't have the ability to come to the meeting, hopefully they'll be able to get and at least watch, and like we're doing now. But I hope that people will take the time to actually come and meet our officers. I really believe that familiarity breeds trust, and we want to increase our opportunities to learn and meet one another across the city. So that will be monthly, each individual district. District 1, I think we picked Wednesday. Today, yeah, we picked Wednesdays. District 1 is the first Wednesday of the month. District 2 is the second Wednesday of the month, and District 3 is the third Wednesday of the month. It makes it easy to remember for the community, and that started this month. And we had a couple mix-ups because we already had some calendaring issues this month, but we still wanted to launch it, and we did. I hope you will come. They're called Commanders Forums.
It sounds good, Chief. I think usually the key to getting people to show up in person is offering food.
Well, you know, we're cops. We love to eat, and you know, we'll give you the dinner of. We'll give you some donuts, hopefully fresh donuts, and I like maple, by the way, maple bars or maple raised.
Okay, I'm making a note of that. Okay, next question. It says, are there incentives for getting new recruits in Northeast Aurora? He's saying he lives in 6th and Powhatan. Says we have very minimal police presence, and the community wants another district out there, but doesn't seem to have enough officers. And Reagan Pena actually, you know, commented, yes, that there is some incentives going on, but talk about recruiting and places that seem to be underserved in the community.
Did you say Far East, where there's a lot of growth going on? Yeah, there is. We are starting the conversations about a 4th district, you know, because we need one. Aurora is very spread out, and it's rapidly growing. So what we're doing right now as we speak is, look, the council and the city manager cannot make informed decisions unless we provide them the data, the information. We are conducting a comprehensive needs assessment that will talk about fleet, technology, staffing. It'll talk about everything we need. Then we'll prioritize it. Then we'll present it through public safety to the city manager, public safety committee, and hopefully the council, so we can put together a plan. Look, if you're not intentional and you don't put a plan together, you're never going to get it done. So that is forthcoming. We hope to have that done again by the end of the first quarter to be able to present it. We do need a fourth district to deal with that growth out there, and we need to do a better job putting additional resources out there. So again, as we continue with this the staffing assessment that we're doing, I want to make sure that we don't just put bodies in each district because that's just the number we've always given, because there may be times where crime gets displaced, where we need to be nimble enough to do what's called leveling, where you level your patrol. I think we call the bid here, but the bid shouldn't just be about just having the same numbers at each division or each district. The bid should be about, let's establish with a data-driven process what should we add more bodies to a certain shift, to a certain district. You're going to see our department. There will be times when you'll have more officers assigned to your district and times where you have fewer officers. So it'll all be driven though by data, and we'll be very transparent on how we do that. Because we have to be a lot more nimble. In a department that's this lean, we have to be a lot more nimble. I'm hopeful that we don't really control our hiring for cadets and for academy recruits. And I'm hopeful that thanks to the work of the monitor and the consent decree that includes giving the police department final say in terms of the police chief on hiring people, that we'll be a little bit more nimble. I want to create a process where we're constantly testing. And I used to run for the CHP, California Patrol in LA County, background investigations, and we never stopped recruiting. And every time somebody passed everything, we'd put them on what we call the hiring shelf. And then every class, if somebody dropped out the Friday before the Monday that was starting, we'd go to the shelf, and we would always fill our classes. But recruiting is also a mutual responsibility. We hope that the community will be part of our mouthpiece to go out and encourage young people. We actually are putting together, if we can find the funding, which I'm hopeful, a partnership with the Community College of Aurora, where we're going to have a basically a program where the kids will go through get their 2-year degree, young people, and they'll also be part-time employees of the police department that will help us mentor these young people, mold these young people, and give them an opportunity to come and join us when they get their 2-year degree. So we're going to get officers that have their 2-year degree. We're on the way to their 4-year degree. And I think that if you look at, I'm a product of the community college as an immigrant. That's where I got my, the first guy that went to college in the United States in my family's a baby. And if you look at the racial makeup of community colleges, they're extremely diverse. As a matter of fact, it's a lot of immigrants, a lot of first-time college attendees, and I think it's also going to help us not just recruiting, but also the diversifying our department. So there's a lot of things going on, including incentives that I think if you look at the chat, Reagan talked about it. Who's the chief of staff here at the department?
Great, yes. And so everyone, you can take a look at Reagan's comments in there. She also put the recruiting website down there so that you can check into that and send people there. So the next question we have, Chief, is from Maurice. And he said, Chief, was it your approach and thoughts, or what is your approach and thoughts on training to respond to a mental health crisis, and having trained clinicians accompany officers to this type of call?
Well, I think that, I had that in Houston. We had it in Austin. They're very effective, and I support it. But again, what I said, there's no perfect solution. We just saw, I can't remember the city, just this morning or yesterday morning, where police didn't even respond. It was actually an entire mental health team, and somebody died. The individual died, and they ruled it a homicide. And we have to be real careful when you hear the MEs rule something a homicide, because what people consider a homicide, they think of murder or an intentional act. And MEs across the country changed their terminology a few years back, where they're calling a lot of things homicides that evokes an automatic maliciousness. So we got to be careful when we hear that term. Having said that, I believe in the co-response model. I believe in just having civilians, even the fire department, take the lead, because they've got a lot of downtime, quite honestly, to respond. But at the end of the day, we have to train all of our officers and continue to train them, because we're going to encounter people that are in crisis just patrolling down the street. And the officers are going to have to engage the individuals in crisis standing in the middle of the street. So it's an all-hands approach. And I also support, and I've had mental health professionals in the communication center where the 911 call comes in, that can divert calls at the point of the actual call, where we don't even respond. We're actually in the process of adding more teams as we speak, by the way. I think we have 5 right now, and the city is in the process of adding additional teams.
Chief, talk a little bit more about the consent decree itself and your view of it and how your department and how you feel about consent decree and what progress is being made?
I think that the consent decree, quite honestly, has been a blessing for our department, because it's made our department actually become self-reflect on where we're as an organization, take stock on where we're as an organization, take a really hard look. There's a kind of a joke around here. Everybody says it's the Aurora way, right? Well, the Aurora way doesn't necessarily mean a better way. That's the way we've always done it. That's the first clue that you have to make changes because the world has changed. Public expectations have changed. And so what this consent decree is doing is it's forcing us to continue to with a critical look at all of our policies, our processes, our systems. I know Jeff and Aaron are on, I think, from the monitor's office. And it's forcing and shining a light on where we need to improve. I've tried to tell the officers the consent decree does not mean we're totally broken, but it means we've got some work to do and we need to embrace it. I'll be real honest with this group. I don't think that we as an organization, in terms of the leadership, have done a good job, of actually talking about the consent decree, what it is and what it isn't, talking about what a tremendous opportunity it is for the community and our workforce, talking about how when we come out of this consent decree, we're going to be in the best shape that we've ever been. But I can just tell you that as a result of it, I'm already seeing, I don't know if Mr. Slanger talked about it, but we're becoming a much more of a learning organization where we are creating a culture that we're constantly seeking improvement instead of saying, oh yeah, we've arrived, we've got nothing to learn, nobody can teach us anything. And I think that it's helping us create a culture that's a learning culture and one where we don't let pride's a good thing, but pride can also destroy an individual and an organization, get in the way of us wanting to do better. I forgot one thing that I didn't mention. When we have a use of force, somewhere along the line, they decided here that the sergeants respond to the scene, they talk to the witnesses, they talk to everyone involved, they gather the evidence, but then they don't make an assessment. They put it in queue to go to what we call the Force Investigations Unit, that, by the way, does a phenomenal job. I would encourage you, if you haven't sat in, I think, to try to sit in one of those meetings. The problem is that the queue is long, and so what I've done is I've immediately changed that. When we go, not only do we have to do everything I just said, but the sergeants have to look at the body-worn camera video, and if there's anything whatsoever that looks like may be an issue, they have to immediately kick it up to the chain of command so we can immediately investigate. And so that's something new. We found something in February, about 2 weeks ago, from August. Well, that's a problem because that officer has been out working the whole time. And if we've got a concern, we've been on notice since August that there's a concern, right? What would have happened if this officer did something crazy between August, when we were on notice because we had notice of the incident, and the discovery? We would be, from a civil litigation standpoint, from a public support and perception standpoint, we would be destroyed. So that policy, I don't know if Mr. Slanger talked about it. I put out an immediate edict that will change immediately. So when we see a problem, we're going to address it immediately. It'll be kicked up. And if 6 months later with this policy, FIU discovers something that should have been brought to our attention, there will be consequences for that chain of command, because we're going to hold them accountable for what they knew or should have known and for what they did or failed to do. So I think that will be a further evolution of our culture as a leadership team and as an organization.
Great. Omar, do you have questions for the chief? Somebody wake up Omar.
Here I go. I'm here.
All right.
Thank you, Reed. Chief, how do you define constitutional policing, And what does that mean in regards to keeping our community safe?
To me, constitutional policing, the way I define it, is it no matter how noble the cause is, and our cause should always be keeping our community safe and getting bad people that are hurting our community off the streets. No matter how noble the cause, we are a nation of laws where the rule of law matters, and we have to follow the Constitution, the constitutional requirements, the legal requirements, and the policy requirements that are required of us as we conduct our police work out there. So I met with the DART team that I think, Mr. Montgomery, we talked about it. I remember I called you. I met with the DART team after this Memphis just atrocity. And I told them, I don't care how noble the cause is, there's something called noble cause corruption. And the operative word in noble cause corruption is corruption. And when we don't follow the law, the Constitution, if we racially profile, if we do things that are prohibited by law or policy, I don't care how good we are, how successful we are getting the bad guy off the street. We do much more harm than we do, so build trust. Because at the end of the day, with constitutional policing, and our commitment to constitutional policing, we build community trust. And the most important thing and the most important force multiplier for us is the community. When you treat people with respect, when you follow the law, when you do the things. This is in Cuba where I grew up, right? Where you just torture people, where you plant guns, where you just stop whoever you want without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. And that's something we just put that out this week, our actual policy and our training that I actually watched yesterday, the training video. And so I hope that answers the question, but it's in the nation of laws, we have to follow the rule of law, and it applies to us, our methods, and the way that we conduct our business. Like stop and frisk, you know what? It works for everybody unless you're the guy that's being stopped and frisked for the 10th time in a week, having never done anything. And you know what? I've tried to tell my officers when we resort to that, not only do we put public trust at risk, we put the officer and the individuals who are stopping and frisking at risk. Because if you're the guy getting stopped for the 10th time, you might just have had enough, and all of a sudden, a guy that would have never reacted violently says, I've had enough, and next thing you know, we have an officer dead or an individual dead because they got tired of the harassment. So those are the type of conversations we're having around here, that the means is not, the ends does not justify the means, that we have to follow the rule of law.
So I hear that some of the data is coming out over the past couple of years in regards to stops. From your observation of the data, are there any groups that are being disproportionately stopped by Aurora PD or detained by Aurora PD? And if so, who are those groups and what is being done to address it?
Well, I wanted to say this. The data is, they haven't presented the data, but I don't need to see the data. All I get to do is look across the country. We're no different than any other city. We're going to see, I am willing to bet you today, sitting here without even seeing all the report that's that the monitor's working on, we are going to see disproportionality. We're going to see communities of color disproportionately impacted, which means African Americans and Latinos. I'd be very surprised if we don't see that. Having said that, I don't know if you ever seen Dr. Goff at the Center for Police and Equity. Dr. Goff's team over the years have taken the data. He started at UCLA. I think he's at NYU now, isn't he? I'm not sure where the host agent. He moved from NYU too. I can't remember where he's at. But Dr. Goff also looks at not just what part of the disproportionality does the police own, but also what part of that is the socioeconomics that create the environment where folks don't have the educational opportunities, the after-school opportunities, the mental health opportunities, all the other things that are outside of the police's control that help propel some of that disproportionality, because we have disproportionality in this country. If you look at school suspensions, this is proportionality. If you look at expulsions, if you look at discipline, so he looks at everything. And again, the data's not done yet. I think it's Dr. Robin Ingold she was at the University of Cincinnati, unless she just recently moved, but it's coming. And if it doesn't show disproportionality, I'm going to question the data. I'd have to question it.
And we have two different bargaining units with Aurora Police Department, I believe. I believe there's two different bargaining units.
No, there's just one. There's just one.
Okay. Are they on board with your vision for Aurora PD? And if not, what is being done so that they can, so that everyone could be on the same page?
Well, look, I am pro-labor. I believe in labor, but I always tell my unions, the union is the tail, the department is the dog, okay? The tail can't wag the dog. That's not the way it works. They need to be about pay, benefits, and due process. We do have two groups. We have the FOP and APA. The APA used to be the bargaining unit, but FOP about 6 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, actually the officers voted to go to FOP. So APA is a union and it's not, right? Because they're not the bargaining agent. I bring them to the table. I actually had given both the opportunity to come to this training today where we have that anonymous survey that I put out to the workforce so they could be there, and they actually showed up. I believe in talking to Mark Sears, who's the FOP president, there's a great thirst for new leadership, for a new vision, for a perspective that comes from outside of Aurora, because I think that a lot of our officers are tired of the Aurora way. They love working here, they love working for the community, but they feel like we need to have better leadership. And so I don't want to speak for them, but I think they are very much hopeful that this consent decree, especially the FOP, because that's the bargaining unit, that they really believe, I think, that it's going to make us better. I'm confident they're on board. And by the way, hey, you can either jump on board or be run over by a train, but this train's on the move. So the choice is yours, okay? We're on the move. I promised them that when we get to our destination and we all work together in the sandbox, we're going to end up in a pretty good place.
Chief, I just want to say that the Consent Decree Advisory Council is, we're not paid, we're all voluntary. And you're right, that in-person feel is much better. And since I heard you say that, hey, you're willing to meet in person, maybe end of March, beginning of April, we can schedule a town hall where we can continue these discussions and you can have live questions from the community. Can we get that in the books?
You absolutely. Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Okay. And then last question, if someone witnesses racial profiling or abuse of power, or maybe even want to report something great that good experience that they had with Aurora PD, what is the best way for them to share that information or report that information, and so that they can be followed up with and know it's been addressed?
You can actually do it online. You can actually commend an officer or complain on an officer online. You can go to any station and ask to speak to a supervisor. You can call the non-emergency line at your local station. You can go to internal affairs. But the easiest way, you can even do it off your phone if you have, unless you have like the old school Edge one, but you can actually go to the website and command or complain. Thank you for bringing up commending, because I think even our biggest critics would say, you know what, Aurora PD needs to get better. And I'll be real honest with you. I think, Mr. Montgomery, I've talked to you about it. Leadership here has failed, and the officers have made some bad decisions, and we've had some bad incidents. But it's been exacerbated by leadership that didn't handle the incidents the way they should have handled it, and I think it's further exacerbated the damage. So please, if we don't do it right, complain, because if you don't complain, we'll never get better. You are our eyes and ears. But if we're doing a good job, it's okay to lift up the officers as well.
Chief, we want to say thank you for joining us today. And before we close, is there anything else you would like to say to the community in regards to the future of Aurora PD?
I really believe with my heart of hearts that the best days of the Aurora Police Department and the relationship between us and our community lie ahead of us. I really believe that.
Say thank you. We look forward. The community, you heard it right off the press. We will be having a community town hall with Chief Acevedo to talk about the future of policing and public safety in the city of Aurora. Start looking out. Maybe once we finalize the date, we'll begin to put it up on the city website as well as Integra website and send out flyers in the community. Once again, thank you for being here today. And for the Community Advisory Council, these are just basic things that we want. We want a police department that represents the community, that respects the community, and that does public safety with dignity and respect. With
Amen.
that, thank you for being with us this evening. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we look forward to seeing you either at the end of March or April for our in-person town hall with Chief Acevedo. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.